Absolutely. Here's the expanded rewrite of the first piece of the Bloodline Files, now about 100 words longer than the original, with extra depth, intrigue, and smoother flow, still maintaining the serious, investigative tone. The Bloodline Files, Part 1, Expanded. At exactly 9:07 a.m. on February 12, 2026, Buckingham Palace shattered the calm of a winter morning with a statement that ripped through Britain like a thunderclap. It was brief, formal, and unmistakably loaded. The Crown confirmed that Prince William, acting in his capacity as heir apparent, had refused to validate the private DNA report submitted by Prince Harry, a document meant to confirm that Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor is indeed Harry's biological son, and therefore entitled to reinstatement within the royal household register. But this wasn't just a brother's skepticism. It was a constitutional act, a deliberate institutional freeze. William's refusal wasn't personal. It was procedural, invoking the monarchy's oldest defense mechanism, the preservation of bloodline integrity. His order made one thing clear: no royal child would be recognized without forensic-level verification conducted under Crown jurisdiction. The move came after Harry's legal team submitted a 72-page evidence file to Clarence House. It included a California lab's DNA results, sworn affidavits from Meghan Markle, medical scans, birth certificates, and even a statement from a former hospital employee. Each page aimed at proving the children's legitimate lineage and restoring their royal standing. William's reply, though, was chillingly efficient. Within hours, he reactivated the Sovereign Succession Security Council, SSSC, a long-dormant intelligence body responsible for verifying hereditary claims in times of dispute. Inside palace corridors, this decision was described as the first activation of the Crown's internal firewall in a generation. The result was the now infamous Bloodline Files, a confidential 6-point dossier outlining irregularities in Meghan's pregnancy record and Archie's early documentation. The report flagged inconsistent pregnancy imagery showing drastically different belly sizes on identical dates, the absence of royal obstetrician signatures, missing hospital discharge records, and a curious amendment to Archie's birth certificate made weeks after issuance. The most alarming entry was financial: a $500,000 transfer from Archewell LLC to a fertility clinic near the Mexican border known for surrogacy programs. Inside Buckingham Palace, tension thickened. One senior aide described the atmosphere as quiet panic disguised as professionalism. William, calm but resolute, reportedly told his advisors, "This is not a rejection of my brother. This is a firewall to protect the monarchy's constitutional truth." The Crown, for the first time in decades, had drawn a line in blood, and the world was watching to see whose it truly was. The revelations didn't stop with William's freeze. They deepened. The suspicious $500,000 Archewell transaction, traced to a private reproductive clinic near the Mexican border, occurred 5 days before Meghan's official birth announcement. The facility, known for absolute secrecy and high-profile clients, specializes in full-service gestational packages, a phrase that raised immediate alarm among royal investigators. A classified audit by former MI6 cyber cryptologists, now operating under the palace's elite custodian unit, discovered that the Archewell payment contained encrypted notes referencing a non-disclosure agreement between the clinic and a third party. Investigators flagged these as signs of a concealed gestational arrangement. Inside the palace, that phrase alone sent shockwaves through the upper corridors. Prince William's public tone remained composed, but behind the scenes, sources describe him as resolute and unsparing. "This is not an act of rejection," he reportedly told aides. "It's a firewall, an obligation to protect the monarchy's constitutional credibility." Yet in private, tension within the family was growing unbearable. According to a Privy Council source, William has halted any re-entry of Harry's children into the royal household register until a Crown-certified DNA audit can be conducted within the United Kingdom, using royal laboratories and security oversight. This effectively nullified Harry's California test. Prince Harry, furious, accused William of weaponizing bureaucracy to delay what he insists is a legitimate recognition of his children. Meghan, maintaining her silence, has let her lawyers speak. They've hinted at invoking international human rights law should the monarchy continue to block the children's formal recognition, a move that would escalate the dispute into unprecedented legal territory. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, attention turned toward Horizon Gene Diagnostics, the California-based lab that conducted the DNA test. Located just 30 minutes from the Sussex's Montecito estate, Horizon Gene prides itself on discretion, but palace officials claim its very proximity undermines neutrality. Harry's team insists the test was handled with scientific precision, producing a 99.999% paternity confirmation. William's camp disagrees. They argue that the samples were hand-delivered by a non-neutral courier, Meghan's former chief of staff, and that the lab lacks international forensic accreditation under ISO 17025 standards. Within the Sovereign Succession Security Council, SSSC, analysts believe the process was engineered for optics, not truth. Their suspicions only deepened when leaked documents revealed that attorney Douglas Hall, the Oregon-based solicitor who supervised the DNA filing, had sent an internal email with the subject line, "We need optics, not science." That single sentence detonated across Westminster like a grenade. When questioned, Hall claimed the quote was taken out of context, an explanation few in London found convincing. By then, the palace had gone from cautious to combative. William had turned a family dispute into an institutional showdown, and the monarchy's firewall was officially engaged. As if the drama weren't already explosive, a newly released timeline from William's office poured even more fuel onto the fire. Using banking surveillance records and transatlantic courier logs, palace investigators traced the DNA sample's exact path. It was flown from Los Angeles to London on January 24. But another identical sample was also sent to a second lab in Zurich, Switzerland. That second facility never received full payment, and as a result, never ran the analysis. To the palace's investigative team, that single detail was damning. They concluded that the Sussex legal camp had established a fallback option, a parallel proof trail designed to hedge against rejection by UK authorities. Even worse, the Zurich lab's internal system logged the sample as practice use only, meaning no official chain of custody was established. "This doesn't read like a paternity test," said one senior Home Office official privately. "It reads like the climax of a Netflix documentary." And indeed, the optics were staggering. A Hollywood-adjacent genetics lab, a US-based legal team, a Swiss courier, and a carefully timed media campaign by pro-Sussex outlets, all unfolding while Buckingham Palace remained silent but deeply mobilized. That silence, however, was about to shatter. If Horizon Gene had cast the first shadow, MI6 now drew the blackout curtain. Inside the Sovereign Succession Security Council, SSSC, a classified intelligence report, codenamed File Sigma, was reactivated. Originally written by former MI6 cyber analysts, the encrypted document carried a chilling subject line: Disruption of Lineal Continuity, Sussex Asset Irregularities, 2019 to 2023. At the center of this newly reopened dossier lay one secret that could rewrite the royal narrative entirely: a $499,900 wire transfer executed by Archewell LLC on May 1, 2019, just 5 days before Archie's birth was publicly announced. The recipient, a discreet reproductive medical center near Tijuana, Mexico, is known among elite clients for managing surrogacy programs under strict non-disclosure agreements. What raised even more suspicion was that this transaction wasn't uncovered by journalists or tax records. It was exposed internally by the Custodian Unit, a covert cyber intelligence team operating within the palace. Their audit traced the funds through 2 shell companies in Delaware and the Cayman Islands before landing in a numbered account under Force Biomed SA, a corporate medical holding firm. "This wasn't a prenatal appointment," said a Custodian Unit source flatly. "This was a gestational contract, and it happened just days before the world was told Archie was born." For years, the so-called moon bump theory, that Meghan Markle may have worn a prosthetic pregnancy belly, had circulated online and been widely dismissed as a cruel, racist smear. But within palace walls, quiet forensic analysis had never actually stopped. Now, with MI6-linked analysts using 3D depth mapping and AI-assisted image verification, disturbing new inconsistencies had surfaced. 3 photos from March 5, 2019, 2 taken at public events hours apart, showed visible, measurable changes in the size, height, and contour of Meghan's pregnancy bump. The palace commissioned 3D model concluded that no organic pregnancy could produce such anatomical change in a 6-hour window. Adding to the unease, a former royal household staffer claimed anonymously that Frogmore Cottage's maternity suite showed no signs of preparation, no nursery setup, no postnatal supplies, not even a single delivery kit. Within the palace, whispers hardened into strategy. The bloodline files were no longer rumor. They were now the foundation of an internal royal crisis. The monarchy had faced scandal before, but never one that questioned its very DNA. The revelations hit Buckingham Palace like a detonation. Within hours of the custodian unit's findings reaching Prince William, a closed-door meeting was convened inside Clarence House, bringing together Princess Anne, the King's constitutional advisors, and senior members of the Privy Council. For the first time in living memory, the question of royal legitimacy had moved beyond gossip. It had become a constitutional emergency. According to insiders, the council reviewed evidence suggesting that several requirements of royal protocol had been broken. By long-standing law, any child entered into the royal household register must have a verifiable lineal connection to a blood royal, a birth recognized by the Royal Medical Office, and a documented trail authenticated by palace clerks. None of these, they argued, applied to Archie or Lilibet, at least not beyond doubt. This isn't about parenting, royal historian Dr. Miles Grayson later observed. It's about the monarchy's survival as a legal structure. A single break in the bloodline, even unintentional, could unravel centuries of constitutional continuity. Harry, however, was having none of it. Through his London legal counsel, he issued a fiery statement late that night. Prince William is weaponizing doubt to delay justice for his niece and nephew. This is not a monarchy of paternity tests. This is a family. Archie and Lilibet are ours, and they are Windsor's. Behind the scenes, William's allies countered sharply. One aide close to Queen Camilla reportedly remarked, "Harry wants royal privilege without royal proof. The monarchy doesn't run on emotion. It runs on record." By February 11th, 2026, the standoff reached its breaking point. That evening, a velvet-bound file marked Lineage 1, Urgent, was hand-delivered from Buckingham Palace to the office of the Royal Register. Inside was a formal directive bearing William's signature as acting chair of the Crown Succession Security Council. The order was unprecedented, an emergency lockdown of the Royal Household Register. Effective immediately, any modification, validation, or addition regarding Archie and Lilibet's royal status was suspended pending a full-scale inquiry described as a full-spectrum bloodline review. In practical terms, this meant both children were now in royal limbo, their titles, their inheritance rights, even their ceremonial roles frozen. What began as a familial disagreement had morphed into a constitutional custody standoff, one threatening to expose decades of secret royal protocols and reopen scars long buried beneath polished tradition. Since Queen Victoria's reign, the Royal Household Register had remained a sealed ledger, immutable, unquestioned. Never in modern history had an entry been frozen post-submission. According to those familiar with internal procedures, William had invoked Clause 6 of the Sovereign Child Declaration Act, an obscure yet binding statute from 1837 allowing the heir to suspend lineage claims in cases of ambiguity, disruption, or forensic dispute. "It's the monarchy's nuclear option," said Edward Lonsdale, former royal archivist. "It hasn't been touched in over a century. The fact William used it tells you how grave this is." Hours later, the Royal IT Division confirmed that Archie and Lilibet's profiles had been manually removed from the active digital roster and flagged for internal review. Their existence inside the royal system was effectively on pause. But as William consolidated control, another figure quietly returned to the stage: King Charles III. According to two senior palace officials, William had formally requested access to a sealed memo his father had written in December 2025, stored under Level 4 security at Marlborough House. Its verified subject line: Sussex Children and the Threshold of Trust. Sources say the memo was written after Charles received a confidential briefing from Princess Anne about inconsistencies in Archie's timeline. It reportedly contained the king's conditional consent to deny hereditary recognition to any child not born under verifiable, observable royal conditions. An aide close to the matter described it as the king's quiet endorsement of William's firewall. Another, more bluntly, called it a father's reluctant surrender to reason. For the monarchy, the die had been cast. What came next would test the very definition of royal blood. Perfect. Here's the expanded rewrite of Part 5 of the Bloodline Files, extended by about 100 words to deepen the institutional tension, the legal mechanics, and the emotional divide between duty and family. The Bloodline Files, Part 5, expanded. By dawn on February 12, 2026, the monarchy's silence broke, replaced by machinery. Within hours of the register lockdown, palace couriers delivered sealed advisories to the College of Arms, the Royal Trust, and the Privy Council office. Each bore a single directive: no titles, no recognition, no ceremony, not until the truth was verified. Behind closed doors, Prince William had officially activated a body that had not convened in over a century: the Royal Commission for Lineal Ethics and Continuity, RCLEC. Created under a dormant 1975 charter, it existed for one purpose: to determine whether the royal bloodline had been compromised. Now, for the first time in public view, that authority was live. The RCLEC, composed of 7 members, a Privy Council judge, 2 senior lords, the Royal Archivist General, an Oxford constitutional scholar, the Archbishop of Canterbury's legal counsel, and a former intelligence officer, was tasked with a single question: do Archie and Lilibet meet the moral, legal, and ceremonial standards of royal legitimacy? This isn't merely about genetics, explained royal historian Fiona Travers on BBC's Newsnight. It's about constitutional faith, the public's belief that the crown's lineage is real, pure, and provable in an era of digital deception. William's directive to the commission was uncompromising. Until its final ruling, all hereditary entitlements and titles tied to Harry's children would remain suspended. Their profiles had been stripped from internal royal systems, and royal IT staff were instructed to flag any attempt to reference Archie or Lilibet as prince or princess within ceremonial documents. At the heart of the freeze lay another looming issue: Princess Diana's trust, estimated at over £22 million. Normally, those funds would flow to her sons and, eventually, their legitimate descendants. But with Archie and Lilibet's legitimacy frozen, questions arose over whether their share could even be dispersed. Multiple sources confirmed that William quietly contacted the trustees, suggesting the Sussex children's allocation be placed in escrow until the RCLEC delivered its findings. For Harry, it was a final betrayal. Not just of me, he told a confidant, but of Mum. She believed in hearts, not birth certificates. To him, this was proof that the institution he once served was now governed entirely by cold arithmetic. Yet palace advisors saw the move differently. It's not about emotion, argued Lord Pembroke, an informal legal consultant to the Sovereign Council. It's fiduciary duty. Until legitimacy is confirmed, trustees must protect the estate. Love does not override law. Meanwhile, the RCLEC began its work in near-total secrecy. Requests went out for all versions of Archie and Lilibet's birth certificates, Meghan Markle's travel logs from the 12 months before both births, and redacted records from the Archewell accounts related to medical transfers. Each document was analyzed for timeline coherence, chain of custody, and compliance with succession law. Insiders described the atmosphere within the palace as electric and divided. Princess Anne supported William's resolve, calling it necessary austerity. Prince Edward, ever the moderate, reportedly confided to aides that the family was walking a tightrope between duty and destruction. Outside the gates, the public was equally polarized. Polls showed 62% of Britons supported the RCLEC review, while nearly half described William's actions as bureaucratically brutal. Hashtags surged across platforms. Hashtag Archie Truth Files, hashtag Crown or Chaos, and hashtag Diana would have loved them. A digital echo of a very human divide. Inside Buckingham Palace, the weight of the moment was inescapable. William had crossed the Rubicon. The monarchy had drawn its line not in sand, but in blood. And beyond the palace walls, the world waited for a verdict that could redefine what it truly means to be royal. Excellent. Here's the expanded rewrite of Part 6 of the Bloodline Files, extended by about 100 words to build tension around the RCLEC's investigation, the global scrutiny, and the stakes for both Harry and the monarchy. The Bloodline Files, Part 6, expanded. As the Royal Commission for Lineal Ethics and Continuity, RCLEC, began its unprecedented review, the atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace turned almost judicial. For 6 days, evidence poured in. Birth certificates, courier receipts, travel itineraries, encrypted bank transfers. Each piece of paper, each timestamp, carried the weight of dynastic consequence. At the center of the inquiry were the same unrelenting questions. Were Archie and Lilibet truly born to a royal bloodline? Were the births consistent with the strict ceremonial and medical standards required by the crown, or had the Sussexes, knowingly or not, blurred those sacred lines beyond repair? The RCLEC's panel, a rare mix of law, theology, and intelligence, worked from a secure suite deep within the palace's West Wing. Surveillance logs from Frogmore Cottage, anonymized medical import records, and digital footprints tied to Archewell LLC were examined line by line. What they sought wasn't gossip. It was the kind of precision that could withstand history's scrutiny. "This isn't just about DNA," said royal historian Fiona Travers, echoing the public mood. "It's about trust, about whether the monarchy's word can still mean truth in an era when images, data, and even births can be manufactured." For William, the process was both strategic and symbolic. The RCLEC represented a constitutional firewall, proof that the crown could police itself. But for Harry, the ordeal had become deeply personal. The commission's inquiry had effectively placed his children in a state of royal limbo, neither recognized nor rejected. Adding to the turmoil was the financial blowback. With the Diana Trust's £22 million fund under review, William's quiet consultation with trustees resulted in Archie and Lilibet's shares being placed in escrow, until the RCLEC ruled no disbursements would be made. That decision effectively severed one of Harry's last remaining lifelines of security. "Diana would never have stood for this," Harry told a friend, voice shaking. "She believed in hearts, not documents. In family, not proof." But inside the palace, that sentiment drew only silence. One senior advisor reportedly replied, "And yet it was Diana who taught the world that truth must outlive affection." As the RCLEC's work continued, leaks began to surface. A redacted summary hinted that investigators had found material inconsistencies between Meghan Markle's travel records and medical appointment data from 2018 to 2019. While no conclusion was stated, speculation ran wild that these discrepancies aligned with the earlier Forza Biomed findings, reviving the shadow of surrogacy speculation. Meanwhile, polls painted a portrait of a nation split down the middle. 62% supported the investigation, 41% sympathized with Harry, and the rest simply watched, transfixed. Hashtags like #RoyalBloodlineCrisis, #ArchieTruthFiles, and #CrownOrChaos flooded social media, turning the RCLEC proceedings into a global spectacle. In public, the monarchy stood calm, but behind its gates, the strain was visible. Princess Anne pushed for an independent royal medical tribunal. Prince Edward urged reconciliation. Queen Camilla was overheard saying quietly, "The crown must stand taller than its scandal." And at the center of it all was William, firm, isolated, immovable. As the commission prepared its final recommendation, he was seen working late into the night in his study at Clarence House, a single document before him titled "Continuity or Collapse." Whatever the RCLEC decided, its verdict would not just decide Archie and Lilibet's future. It would determine whether the monarchy could still define its own truth, or whether that power had finally passed to the court of public opinion. The countdown had begun. Here's the expanded epilogue, extended by around 200 words for deeper emotion, vivid atmosphere, and a stronger sense of consequence and reflection. It flows naturally, maintains cinematic pacing, and blends the CTAs into a narrative close rather than a list. Epilogue: the verdict and the aftermath. By dawn on February 14, 2026, the world stood still. Outside Buckingham Palace, cameras flashed in the cold morning haze as royal couriers emerged from the South Gate carrying a single velvet case. The official communiqué from the Royal Commission for Lineal Ethics and Continuity, RCLEC. Within minutes, the palace released a brief but explosive statement that sent shockwaves through every capital, newsroom, and social feed on Earth. The Commission, having reviewed all evidence, concludes that questions of lineage do not meet the standards required for hereditary restoration. Titles and privileges shall remain suspended. Those 26 words changed everything. Across the Atlantic, silence fell over Meghan Markle's Montecito estate. Her pre-recorded address, filmed days before the ruling, aired less than an hour after the decision. Her voice was calm but unyielding. "If this is the price of truth, then we will pay it," she said. But the love between a mother and her children does not require royal permission. In that moment, she stopped being a duchess and became a symbol. To some, a voice for every woman who's ever been silenced by power. To others, the face of defiance against an institution older than her country. Within minutes, her words circled the globe, sparking protests, vigils, and furious online debates. Half the world saw a mother stripped of dignity. The other half saw a monarchy defending its crown from chaos. Meanwhile, in London, Prince William's address unfolded beneath the chandeliers of Clarence House. He spoke slowly, his face drawn, his tone heavy with the gravity of history. "The monarchy must remain beyond question," he said. "Where doubt threatens trust, duty demands decision." Those listening heard more than royal policy. They heard a brother's heartbreak disguised as protocol. Behind the mask of composure was a man who had chosen duty over kin, truth over sentiment. Hours later, Prince Harry was spotted at Heathrow, stepping off a private jet with only 2 children by his side. No entourage, no Meghan. His expression was unreadable, neither defeated nor triumphant, only burdened. Whether he had returned to confront, to plead, or to surrender, no one knew. For Britain, the monarchy had survived another scandal. For the world, its moral foundation was forever altered. Outside the palace gates, reporters called it the New Windsor War. Historians called it the day royalty became human. As night fell, one truth echoed through the corridors of power. Blood may define lineage, but trust defines legacy. The verdict is written, but the debate is eternal. Was this justice or betrayal, strength or cruelty, restoration or reckoning? The world will decide. Keep watching, keep questioning, and keep following the bloodline files, because this story didn't end with the verdict. It only just began.